Hello, everyone. Welcome to our second episode in our podcast called How We Love Now. We're here with Ariela, and my name is Keana. She's from the Repair app, and I'm from Chima. And so we're here to just talk about dating, tech, love, and all in between.
I'm so excited for today's episodes. Today, Kiana and I were talking about just that, giving a little bit of update in terms of where we're at. Right before this call, we were talking about how we've both been so exhausted by all the things that we've had going on. So for today's episode, we were thinking of telling you, the audience, a little bit about ourselves, so you can get to know us as well.
Yes. And I will say, even in this season, the hardest part is just like showing up. Not even showing up for other people, but showing up for myself. I think I'm just being pulled in so many different directions and not giving myself grace in that.
Mm.
And so I'm just like learning the balance of like, Kiana, you don't have to do it all, you know?
What stops you from giving yourself grace? Because I think that's something that a lot of us really struggle with. I know I do. It's this idea of like, if you're not where you're supposed to be, then it's really hard to stop and take a look at how far you've actually come.
I will say that's a really good question because I think part of it is like pressure from the outside world, pressure internally. If I don't do this certain thing, what will be the outcome? What
Mm-hmm.
will be the repercussions? And so I really just try to understand that, even with like clients or even with people that you love, you don't have to come from a place of performance all the time. Like
Mm-hmm.
just show up who you are.
Which I think is the scariest part,
Yeah.
especially as therapists. And I'm sure any other therapists that are listening to this can probably relate. I think we hold so much space and compassion for our clients, but it's so hard to actually turn that inwards towards ourselves. And I think part of it is that we get so used to, at least one thing I've noticed is that in therapy, you get so used to focusing on like other people and making sure they're okay and holding space for them. But I think sometimes even outside of sessions, we forget how to actually hold the space for ourselves.
So how do you keep yourself grounded?
Not well. Not well at all. Like right before this call, when you asked me, how are you doing? Like that was the first time all week that I'm like, okay, how am I doing? Like, let me actually reflect because this week has been so busy. I've been jumping from, client work to social media to planning like the podcast to editing stuff. So I feel like this whole week I've been wearing so many hats. There's like the video editor hat and there's the, you know, app CEO hat, and then there's like the therapist hat, and then there's, showing up in my relationship hat. So being a partner, being a daughter, being a sister. And I think sometimes it just gets really overwhelming.
And I can definitely attest to that. Like that's how I've been feeling very heavy this
Mm-hmm.
week, like you said, like being a CEO and actually like being the best for myself,
Mm-hmm.
like in my relationship and also in personal lives too, like being
Mm-hmm.
a better friend, being a better daughter as well. So I can definitely attest to the things that you just said.
And it's hard. I think I find the context switching the hardest part. Going from putting on one hat and focusing on one thing, like being a therapist, for example, to all of a sudden going into a meeting with investors and having to put on a completely different hat. And the way that you speak is different and your tone is different. And then you go visit, for example, like I went to visit my parents, and then all of a sudden I have to speak a different language, abide by a totally different like social, like cultural, like rules. And I think the context switching, at least from what I've noticed, like is really hard.
When do you feel like you're your most authentic self?
That's a good question. I don't know. I feel like myself is just made of like all these different parts, and sometimes it's so hard to like integrate it.
Mm.
How about you?
Honestly, I guess like you said, when you wear so many hats throughout the day and you actually sit with yourself, I feel like I'm left depleted.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have nothing even to give myself.
Yeah. And it's so interesting you say that because I didn't even think about the self-care part, like making time for myself. I'm like, yeah, that's non-existent. And it's hard, especially when you're starting new businesses, as like I think you do have to wear so many hats.
Mhm.
And there's, I think, especially for women too, right? Like we are the social glue of society in a lot of ways. We make space for all of these other people. And, most often than not, like everyone is coming to you when they need like emotional support. And I think we forget that we ourselves like also need that. We focus so much on other people, we focus so much on the business, but maybe we're not really focusing on ourselves.
And that's like even moments like this makes like my heart grows fonder for women who
Hmm.
have kids, right? Who are
Hmm.
CEOs because I'm like, wow, like that's a lot of mental bandwidth that you're also putting in different areas, but they exceed. Also I know easier said than done, right? They're
Hmm.
just showing us like the highlights, but I know on the back end is very hard for them to do all the time. But I really admire their strength.
And honestly, I don't know how anyone has kids on top of all of this.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm like, sometimes it feels like I'm drowning, but at the end of the day, I can go to bed at a reasonable hour. No one is actually waking me up throughout the night multiple times. I don't have to plan lunches or do pickups or drop offs. And I don't know how you fit kids in like the middle of growing a business as well.
Right. But I think it goes back to, like, having a village, right? Having that
Hmm.
support system. Because right now, like, us as founders, like, is
Hmm.
really just you and your husband right now.
Hmm.
And for us, it's 2 other founders and they're engineers. And
Yeah.
so there's a lot of things I need help with in the business side of things, but that's not their scope.
Yeah, and honestly, I can relate to that so much because Pedro and I have these conversations all the time where I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing on the business side. I'm a therapist. I can build mental health tools into an app. I can give you like exactly what you need to build into it. But I can't help with the coding I'm building, and I don't know how to actually run a business. Like, I'm also starting from scratch. And you're right, because sometimes with the technical founders, there is like so much that they need to do on the technical end of things, but then you kind of become like a catch-all for everything else. Like, you need to do social media, you need to know how to run a business, you need to know how to talk to customers, and on top of that have like that therapist role as well.
Exactly, and I think all of our personalities are different, even with my
Hmm.
team, and I love my team because we balance each other out. But I
Hmm.
think on the forefront, I come off as because I'm the one doing branding and marketing, there's a special kind of tone I wanna implement, having emotional feel to what we're doing. And
Hmm.
so sometimes that can be, hard to navigate when my co-founders are very logical, they're very, "Hey, these are these are how things should go?" So I think that can be like a hard balance.
1,000%, 1,000%. And Pedro and I fight about this all the time. Literally all the time. And it is hard because we're also starting this from scratch, right? It's not like we have a marketing degree. It's not that we have a business degree. And I think the mental health training definitely helps in this field because you need
Yes.
to know how to speak to people. You need to know how to speak to investors, how to speak to clients, how to speak to users, things like that. But I do think that all of a sudden we're learning all of these fields that were never meant to
Mhm.
be like, we were never meant to do marketing. We were never taught how to do it. We were never taught how to run a business. So a lot of it is like figuring things out,
Yeah.
or even like video editing, right? With the Riverside, like I spent hours just to figure out how to merge two videos together, and it was as simple as clicking one button. Now I know it, so it's going to save me time, but when you're starting from scratch, these things take so much time.
But I also think we should probably talk about the beauty of starting from scratch because I
Hmm.
feel like there's a lot of listeners who are probably sitting on ideas and are afraid to
Hmm.
start. And so I
Yeah.
really want to provide encouragement to people that's out there that, they have something they want to build but don't know where to
Hmm.
start. I
Yeah.
encourage you, whatever you have on your mind, just start slowly, baby steps, whatever that looks like for you. Just pouring into yourself is very meaningful.
What helped you get started? Because I think you're right. Like, taking that first step, like making that decision, okay, I'm going to take this from an idea to actually start building it. I think that's one of the hardest. For you, like, what helped you take that first step?
What helped me take the first step was I was in a season of my life, I was feeling very unfulfilled. I'm working as a prior therapist. I felt very pulled in different
Mhm.
directions, meaning I was carrying so much home, right? And
Mhm.
then I didn't know how to really cope as a therapist
Mhm.
because I was working with a lot of trauma related clients. And so I was like, I really want to help people in the same capacity, but not as a therapist. Like, what does that
Mhm.
look like for me? And I really had to think to myself, Kiana, your only expertise is in mental health. I'll put myself in a box. And I think
Mhm.
all of us, right, when we go after a certain degree or after
Mhm.
a certain niche, we put ourselves in a box and we don't think outside of that box.
And we're not taught how to think outside of the box, right? Like in our training, we get taught, okay, here is what your area of specialty is going to be. It's going to be couples or trauma or individual
Yeah.
therapists or whatever else. And then the rest of your career is meant to basically see clients all the time. And I think one of the things that we don't talk about enough is therapist burnout and how
Yeah.
difficult that job can be, especially when you're working with more severe cases, when you're working with trauma, when you're working with kind of like deep, deep human emotional pain. And especially if you're an empathetic person, which most therapists are, because you go into this profession because you're empathetic, because you want to help people with their emotional pain. But then being able to carry it, it's really hard not to take that home. And sometimes I have other colleagues and friends who are in this field tell me that they're seeing like 7, 8 clients a day. I'm like, how are you doing this? My max is 4, and then otherwise I'm just exhausted. Like, I wouldn't be able to be a good therapist. And, people have like different limits. And I think my limit when it comes to therapy is 4 clients a day, is how much like my brain can actually handle, but it's not enough.
Mhm.
So for me, the story was really similar in the sense that I wanted to see what else can I do to help people outside of these individual sessions. And I think as therapists, we get so stuck in this idea that there's only one way to help people in their mental health, which is therapy. But then when I think about my own mental health journey, things like listening to people's like podcasts, things like educational components has been such a crucial part in helping me understand myself better. And I think for me, that was the turning point as well, which is how can we create more tools to give people all of this education on mental health outside of the therapy, which is actually very resource heavy.
Yeah, and I really like the way you touched on that because that's one of the things I was feeling as a therapist, just working in residential treatment too. I felt very disheartened because I felt like the only clients I could really bring service to for the ones that could actually pay for it. And so I
Yeah.
feel like the ones who actually truly needed help as well, they weren't
Mhm.
able to. They weren't given those same opportunities as services. And so I felt very limited on who I can service. And I was like, even just researching like different platforms I wanted to be a part of, like I wanted to be a part of actual platforms that they gave like resources, not just paid services, because not everybody has those exact resources.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's such an ethical debate I always
Yeah.
have, which
Yeah.
is that it's this balance because if someone can't afford to pay for therapy, the last thing I want to do is, like charge them like the full rate.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to provide like a sliding fee and things like that whenever people like do like need it. But then at the same time, it's kind of like unfair because why is the burden of like the mental health as a service in our society falling on like the therapist?
Mhm. And I think that brings us to our controversy, like
Mhm.
even today with AI.
Mhm.
AI is very more accessible, and my stance is AI should be here to
Mhm.
enhance, not take
Yeah.
away therapists in any means. But on the other side of that, it's like I can see why people are converting to AI
Mhm.
and not actual therapists, and I hate that.
I hate it too, mostly because I think AI is wonderful.
Mhm.
It's filling a gap that therapists can provide to their clients, which is 24/7 on demand
Mm,
service. But at the same time, the AI is really good when it comes to summarizing what you give it and drawing patterns from what you
mhm.
give it. So it gives you some insight in terms of what is happening for you. And then it knows it has access to all the mental health books. So it's able to like spit out the piece of information that you need in the moment. But when it comes to actually making changes, when it comes to
Mhm.
actually healing at that relational level, part of why therapy is helpful is because of like the rapport between therapist and client. And the relationship itself is very healing, and I don't think AI can necessarily do that.
Right. No, I agree. I remember, like, just having those moments where you saw change in the room, and that was impactful. Like, you can't receive that from
Mhm.
AI.
Yeah,
AI can't pick up those emotions like
yeah.
a human therapist scan. Like, oh my gosh, like you're recognizing change within yourself. Like, remember when we've been through this hurdle months ago, you never thought you'll be here today. And so those are the milestones that I do miss working with clients. It's like, wow.
When I think back to my work with clients, some of the most powerful moments in therapy, it's when I'm actually not saying anything at all. I'm just sitting with a client. They're having like a very profound, like emotional experience. And I'm just an observer to it. And I can kind of like feel what they're feeling. So it's like that level of attunement, which I think is so therapeutically like powerful. And to even take it a step further, drew me to my work in couples is because if you get couples to actually just turn towards each other, just stare in each other's eyes, there's an emotional transformation that can happen that goes beyond words. And there's an emotional transformation that happens that years and years of me in therapy with a client can't actually get to, because it has to do with kind of like the depth of the relationships and the depth of the emotional connection. And I think that's where, as a society, we're not doing a good job at reaching like that level of connection or getting people to reach it like with each other, because to me, that is the healing part. It's not the psychoeducation. It's not what I say as a therapist. It really has to be felt.
What do you think is keeping us from, like, people from achieving those in our society today?
I think we're a very like logical society. I think we live in a society where if something doesn't make emotional sense, and we don't bother even looking into it.
Yeah.
And think of all the investor meetings that you've gone into, right? It's all about like, how is this going to make me money? Like, can you ensure that this is like delivering some sort of like tangible like value when it comes to like the business itself? But when it comes to these moments, there isn't really like a tangible thing that we can put a finger on it, right? It's not really something that we can actually measure. It's more of like a felt process. And I think in psychology, we have tools and measures like when it comes to like emotions as well. But there is like something about that connection that is healing between two people, especially in like close relationships, that I don't think AI can mimic. I don't even think that
Right.
in the therapeutic relationship we can mimic it.
It's almost like no one truly has a mental bandwidth to even follow
Yeah.
through with having those tough conversations anymore. Like, maybe it's because of the economic situations we're in. Life is too expensive or things, whatever the case may
Yeah.
be. But I think also too, just making time and making space for
Hmm.
those extra conversations we need to have. Because a lot of
Yeah.
things are being placed under the rug because of those.
Right. I think we live in a society that's, again, very logical and very materialistic.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Um, we think that having value as humans depends on how much you can produce. Like it's all this like tangible outcomes. And when it comes to emotional healing, we don't place an emphasis on that. When it comes to the emotional bonds that we have, like if you had 1 hour, and if that 1 hour you can choose to, you know, make money so you can buy something later on versus like have a very emotionally intense conversation with your partner, I think most of us would choose the money because
Mm.
emotional conversations are hard. So
Mhm.
immediately we avoid them. And also, we need money in order to survive in today's society. So it is like more of a need. But I think we've set up society in a way that makes money seem like the most important need, and we're not valuing our relationship needs.
And I think that's a great point because a lot of times people are sacrificing instant gratification for their needs, right?
Yeah.
Even, let's go to social media. I think a lot of people start their platforms off of good reason, but then when they see like the money racking up, right? The views, their mindset starts to change. Things
Mhm.
starts to shift. And I think that's important to realize too, because once your mind starts shifting, you're still influencing people. You're still influencing users. And I think when you move away from your mission, people are also looking at that too.
And you're right. I think the more and more social media becomes a thing, the more, and one of the things I'm learning now with building an app is this idea of how to actually keep users hooked. So how to keep users like coming back like day after day after day. And one of the things that we always get asked for like in investor meetings, it's, what is like your daily active user? What is your weekly active user? So it's all of this idea how to get people hooked into these apps. But I don't know if that is like the best way to enhance our relationships.
Right. Because I'm also thinking anyone can be hooked all day, but
Yeah.
what are we serving them, right?
Hmm.
Like, are they being productive on our platforms? Are we
Yeah.
actually helping them?
Yeah.
'Cause I
Exactly.
don't wanna be another addiction to them, right? Like,
Hmm.
I wanna actually feel like this is helping them in the relationship.
Absolutely. And it's this balance. Like, how do you make like the product good enough so that it's actually reinforcing, it's getting
Right.
people to come back and
Mhm.
using it, but not addicting where you feel like you need to use it every day. Because right now, there's so many things competing for our attention. And it's not necessarily about which product does it best, but rather which product is actually giving us that inherent value. But because we're so used to instant gratification, we don't stop and think what is actually giving us value versus what is fun and what is addicting.
Mhm. Absolutely. Well, that's a really great point. That's a really great point.
Um, so we go to investor meetings and they keep saying that, well, this isn't an app that people can like use daily because they're not fighting daily. So then it's almost like we can't give you funding because people aren't going to keep coming back to it. It's just kind of like people will use it every once in a while, so we can't monetize off of it. But it's a real problem
Yeah.
because, again, the purpose isn't to have fights every day and this is giving you something daily, but this is something that you can have there when you actually need it. Like you're
And
not
also
going to therapy daily. So, why do we think that we need to, when it comes to mental health apps, we need to design them in the way that keeps people coming back daily? I don't think that that's what our goal should be.
because to me, having them, resolve their conflict and
Hmm.
having your app as a standby, I think that's a great thing because imagine if people were fighting every day. To me, it's almost like if everyone keeps fighting and everyone is still using your app, is it really effective?
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That we're not doing the job properly.
Right. It was like the goal is not to keep them on the app. The goal is
Yeah.
really to help them outside of the app. Help them use the tools that we are creating in this app, right? And use
Yeah.
them in their real life. And I
Hmm.
think the other side of investor calls, even to your point, they always say we invest in people, not products. But it's like you have all these phenomenal people who have great
Hmm.
missions, but you're not willing to invest because the traction's not there yet, The retention isn't there yet.
Yeah, there is a little bit of a mismatch between what investors say that they invest in versus what they actually invest in. Yeah, and it's sad because I think we're moving away from what truly matters, like from building products that are actually going to like help people when they need it, to just building products that again are just going to keep people hooked in.
But I also think that is a caveat. Just
Mhm.
working in consumers, a lot of people
Yeah.
don't buy what they need. I think us as humans, we're so quick to buy things that we want. And the
Mhm.
last thing we're willing to buy is something that's going to help us in the long run.
We're doing it to ourselves.
Human behavior, is right. Let's go back to our relationships, right? Like
Mhm.
most people aren't willing to invest in therapy until the last
Mhm.
minute, until divorce is on the table, until
Yeah.
separation is on the table. Like how can we overturn that mindset?
Why do we? Right?
Yeah.
If we have no problem buying the next Gucci bag,
Right?
but which is thousands of dollars, but when it comes to investing that money in therapy, even if we have it, it just feels like so expensive. And is it because we don't see the value in it? Or is it that as a society, we're taught to put value to material things and not our emotional well being?
But I also think the other side of that, as
Mhm.
humans, because we already have something, some people don't think it can be taken away.
Mm.
That Gucci bag that they really want is only
Mhm.
here for a limited time, but I've been in this relationship for 10 years. It's not gonna go anywhere. Even if I put in work and even if I don't.
We take it for granted.
Yeah, that's a word.
Yeah, it really is. And I can see it, for example, like in my own relationship too. We've tried like couples counseling, we've gone for a few sessions, and then life gets in the way and you stop
Mhm.
prioritizing it. And then it's not when things are actually bad that you turn to it and you're like, oh no, after this fight, we should definitely book that therapist appointment again.
It's almost like when things are going well, it's
Mhm.
almost like, "Hey, maybe we should hold off on therapy."
Yeah, it's so, human beings are so interesting.
Yeah, but I think also just being in a position to study human behavior
Hmm.
puts a lot of things in perspective for me. Like,
Yeah.
even just learning why a lot of couples don't go on dates anymore. It's due to
Hmm.
responsibilities or, we
Hmm.
fell out of touch, like, we don't put our relationship first anymore. Like, when you really put that in perspective, that's what helps me to create building better products, right? Because we're listening, we're learning the feedback, we're reading the stats.
But you're right, like so many other things just get in the way of like tending to our relationships, even though the most healing I've ever had in my life and the most healing most people that I see, like clients that I see say that they've had in their lives, is a healthy relationship. And not just romantic. It's about a friend that really gets you, and deep conversations that you're having with a coworker, or healing conversations that you've had with a parent who's now reading about mental health. I think we just don't provide enough value in our society to those conversations, even though they are the things that contribute the most to our well being.
And even just by you touching on that, it made me think of a recent, like, my friend called me the other day and she called me in distraught, and I literally put
Mhm.
everything down for her.
Mhm.
And I enjoyed that moment because it's been a long time since we had a deep conversation, right?
Mhm.
And I was grateful to be there in her time of need, but I think that goes to what we're talking about. Like, why is it
Mhm.
we put everything down when something's wrong? You know? Like, just being in that space with her, like, I was okay with, like, putting everything down because I wanted to be there for her.
Mhm.
And and that was a form of healing on both sides. Like,
Mhm.
wow, I really needed this conversation. Like, wow, I really needed this moment with you. And I think we're always too busy to check in on people, right? Even when things are going well. But a simple text, "Hey, I'm thinking of you. Hope you have a great day today. Hey, I know you have a big exam coming up. I wish you well." Like, I think we missed the mark on those minimum things, right? And we only, I don't know, I just think when it's time to actually show up, it's harder to show up in those bigger moments too because we're not doing the little things.
Absolutely. And as you said that, it made me think about also why it's so hard for us to let people into that level unless we're in extreme, extreme distress.
Yeah.
And you're right, it goes both ways. When you show up for someone, there's something that happens between the both of you. Not only are you in like a supportive position, but there's like this connection that gets built in those moments that's actually good for both,
Mhm.
regardless of who needs the help or who's doing the helping.
Right. Right.
And you're right. We save these really healing, really deep, really connected conversations for moments of distress. It's almost like that's when we finally let the mask down. Other
Huh.
than that, it's just up and it's there and it stays there and it's glued to our face.
I'm reflecting when you say that because I think maybe I'm just speaking for a lot of people when I say this. Maybe they're afraid to come in those in between moments because they feel like maybe the other person has a lot that's going on. They don't want to be a burden. And I'm telling anyone that's listening, you're not a burden. Like, your
Mhm.
problems are not small, you know? And I'm sure your friend wants to be there for you. Your partner wants to be there for you. Just let them in, you know?
And oftentimes, too, at least this is like something I notice myself do a lot. Like, I can do it by myself. Why do I need to
Mm,
let someone else
yeah,
in?
yeah,
You know?
that's good.
I got it. I can handle this. And like that is the script that runs in my head. And yeah, you probably do got it. You're an adult human being, since I'm guessing most of the people watching this show are adult human beings. So I'm sure you can figure it out on your own. And more often than not, it's not that we need someone to like provide physical support. We just need someone to like hold our hand through it. They don't even need to say anything. Most of the most meaningful support I've ever gotten in my life, it's not someone telling me what to do or how to solve a situation. It's just someone like giving me a hug when I need it. It's my
Mhm.
partner just listening to my rants about something that's really difficult that I'm going through. And
Yeah,
sometimes it's like the nonverbal thing, just kind
yeah.
of like holding the space. And for those of you who don't know in terms of what I mean about holding space, it's just being there for someone.
Yes,
and
yes.
just listening and just nodding along to what they have to say, not trying to change it. Maybe validating, saying something like, yeah, that sounds like a really hard situation you're going through. Tell me more.
Mhm.
That's it. It sounds so simple, but that is like the most powerful thing that we can do.
And I think one of the most meaningful moments for me is like having people just show up and not having to ask. Like,
Mhm.
hey, Kiana, I'm thinking of you today. Like, hey, like I thought of you when I read this. So just like just seeing seen, right, by people that you love, by people that you do so much for them, like that reciprocation, I think is very meaningful and valuable to me.
Absolutely. How do you think we can help people have deeper conversations even outside of distressing moments?
I think showing up as your authentic self,
Mhm.
cliche as that sound, but really, I think when people see the human side of you, they feel
Mhm.
more compelled to lean in and tell you more things about them. It's always about building rapport. I think when you come with this perfect tie and suit, people don't want to share the things because they feel exposed,
Yeah.
right? But I think when you come from a place of like, hey, I don't have it all together. I'm
Mhm.
struggling just as you are. Hey, let's talk about this. It brings room for partnership and collaboration versus a one-sided and someone judging on the other end.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's in our society, especially in like Western society, there's such a perfectionism element to how we show up in our relationships. So unless we have our hair and makeup done and we look put together to the T's, we can't go and like see someone. Unless that we talk about what is going well in our lives and how successful we are, then we can't go and like have like a human conversation with
Mhm.
someone. So there's like this mask. We're so scared of being judged by others that we're putting on this barrier and keeping people at arm's length. But it really is like dropping that mask that builds connection. But there's something very scary about dropping the mask.
And it even goes back to, like, even being in a new founders community, right? Or even speaking to investors, like, it's almost like you have to show off your accolades, show off why you're a great founder,
Yeah.
why you should receive this investment from us, and it's like, we can't even come from a place of human connection because I have to show and prove myself to you why I'm worthy of your, monetary value.
Yeah. And it's so crazy because then it's the people that just know how to sell themselves the most
Yeah.
that actually seem like they're the most successful or that they get handed opportunities. And especially if you're a woman, if were raised in a community that actually teaches you not to speak about your accomplishments, that you need to be humble, that you need to just kind of put your head down and work and not show off in those meetings, it's really hard to prove yourself. So then you don't get handed the same opportunities. Even though you could be like a wonderful, wonderful person and you're building something really wonderful.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part, like, when you do try to show up in the same way as someone else, you still not handing those same opportunities.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's hard navigating the world of being a new founder for sure.
Right, right,
For
especially when you're
sure.
taking all this advice, right, from different people,
Yeah.
different founders, right? But I think also just, like, leading with who you are, your
Mhm.
mission, why are you building what you're building? To
Yeah.
me, no one can take that away from you. No
Hmm.
numbers can it's just, like, really building from a place of why are you building this speaks more
Hmm.
than numbers, in my opinion.
100%. We just need investors to see.
Exactly.
Yeah, and honestly, this is why I think these conversations, like for me, are kind of like therapy talking to you because you are in like kind of like the same world and you also get it, but we can also just tell each other like I'm so tired, like this is so hard, like
Yes.
I don't know how to do this, and lean on each other a little bit more. And again, that these conversations don't happen often because we're scared that other people will see us as incompetent if we open up, that other people will see us as not knowing what we're doing. And then if we can't tell investors that we know exactly what we're doing, then we're scared that we're going to lose out on these opportunities.
And I just wanna say, like, I truly just appreciate you because this season has been very isolating, so just, like, meeting you in a time that I need it is so crucial, and I thank you for navigating
Likewise.
this journey with me, and I'm speaking this to all women who may
Mhm.
feel like they're building alone. tap into a community, tap into
Mhm.
women that are building alongside that you can build alongside with. It makes the journey more fulfilling. It makes the
Mhm.
journey more worthwhile because you're not alone, even though you
Yeah.
may feel like it.
Yeah, and definitely get in touch with us if you're
Yes, this is
struggling and you
exactly
wanna
why we're
talk
here.
about it.
Exactly. This is exactly why we're
Maybe we should build, like, a therapy group for founders.
Yes,
Led therapy group.
like a WhatsApp channel. Like seriously,
Honestly, that's not a bad idea. I could definitely use that.
it nice having a space where we can just piggyback off ideas and like
Mhm.
be human, right? I think
Yeah.
like we said in the beginning of our podcast, like this episode, we're so used to wearing all these different hats, but let's have a
Mhm.
channel where we can be ourselves. We can
Mhm.
show up as ourselves. Be there for someone else, not even in
Mhm.
their time of need, but in their time of want.
Yeah. Honestly, my vision and what I hope the world will eventually turn into, it's kind of like if money was off the table. Like if we could just, we had all of our basic needs met. Because I think part of why we're building too, it's we need to make a living for ourselves,
Mhm.
right? But if money was off the table, imagine how much more creative like people would be. Like we could just actually build things that are good for humans rather than building
Mhm.
things just because we want to keep humans hooked and have them like give us our money. I think I definitely would be a better therapist if money was off the table. I think we would care for ourselves like a lot more if we didn't feel like we constantly had to work to make money. So I just wonder how differently we would be building if it wasn't all about the money.
I like that because it's almost like if money was truly off the table, a lot of us wouldn't be in uncompromising situations. Like,
Exactly.
I
I
see a
like
lot
how you put that.
right? Because I think some people are in like certain circumstances where
Mhm.
they have to go outside their morals, right? To fulfill a certain thing that they need for their families or for themselves. And
Yeah.
so, I really hope we do get to a place in society where money is truly off the table.
Mhm.
So there can be more creativity, more positivity in the world too.
Yeah, and like more humanness to it versus like
Yeah.
having to put on this like facade because you want to get further in your career because like you want to like make a living for yourself at the end of the day. And one of the breakdowns I had this week where and I was talking to Pedro about it too is this idea with like social media because now I'm putting more content, but it's so easy to get swayed in terms of what you actually put out there based on likes, based on shares, based on how the audience is reacting to it. And I think that's one of the things that I'm trying to be a bit more mindful too is even if I get less likes, like that's okay. I just need to like do something that's a little bit more in line like with my integrity. But I can see how it's so easy if you're not paying attention to just get pulled of doing things almost like performing, doing things that aren't actually things that you believe in or saying things that aren't actually things that you believe in just because those are the things that are getting shared so you're getting more reinforcement on that.
I say for me, like, I'll feel that pull inside myself when I know I'm going to get something that I believe, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to get those views or whatever. But I think
Mm.
I like to tell myself the right audience just haven't found us yet,
Yeah,
Like you won't,
that's a good way of putting it. We're just
yeah,
waiting for the right audience.
it won't feel like a fight.
Yeah, yeah, and it kind of goes back to one of our previous conversations, which is when you're kind of on the right path you feel it because things also come to you. You're not always like being the one like seeking out things.
Mhm. And so this is one of the reasons why we built How We Love Now, guys. Like
Mhm.
we really just want to hold space for people who are new founders, people who are struggling in their relationships, and people who are just struggling in the in-betweens. And this is for space for people just who need support system and someone like me. I didn't even know I needed this more than I know. So this space is great for me just to pour into another founder, another person who's like building something meaningful as well. So thank you all for joining our episode today.
Thank you. And we will see you in 2 weeks where we'll have more interesting conversations, interesting and unleashed conversations in store for you all.
Yes. See you guys.